flexion, wrist extension. Here we go. We would go through this assessment on the uninvolved side. We'll just say that this is the uninvolved side. So what we would do is passively move the individual up into this position and down to this position right here. Now again, we don't want to naga height end feel. So we pull them out far enough that we actually get to the end of the range of motion and it's a biological constraint. We typically have them sitting with their arm up on the table, forearm resting on the table like this. This way we can control the proximal segment very well. So that's what we would do. My end feel here is going to be firm. My end feel here is going to be firm. Okay? Firm end feel in both directions of extension and flexion. My measurement is going to start from a neutral position. So my estimate will go from here up for extension. That looks to be somewhere around 70 to 80 degrees to me, because I'm going to measure through the fifth metacarpal. From here down, looks to me to be somewhere right around 90 degrees. Okay? Now when you do this measure, kind of like what happened in the foot, we had to be careful that we didn't rotate them out of the plane. So you'll notice that I just used my finger across the mat heads right here. If I don't, look what happens. I can get that clear up past 90 degrees, but is that accurate? It's not, okay, because that's actually in a different plane. So that's what I want to do for both of my measures, just like that, okay? So I'm ready to put the goniometer on them. The goniometric axis lines up with the ulnar styloid process. The stationary arm goes through the midline of the ulna in the forearm. The movable arm, the midline of the fifth metacarpal. So that demands that we do a little bit of investigating to actually see where the bone is at and ignore the soft tissue contours because we're measuring through the bone. Does that make sense to everyone? Mm-hmm. Okay. Those great big honking gonies with the big old scale aren't going to work on this. They're just not. Okay? So I bring her down like this. So I've got it lined up there. I've got this lined up through the bone. And I push her down into range like this. And I've got to pull it back to the bone, not to the skin contours. So it's right there. So that ends up being about 87 degrees. Okay? So how would I document that? One person raise your hand, tell me how I would document that. Carrie.
Right wrist passes range of motion for flexion 0 to 85. I forgot the number.
87.
87. Firm and feel.
Okay, is that right? Yep. Okay, good. Thanks. And exactly the same process now for going into extension. So I line my goniometer up exactly the same way, across the same landmarks. I bring her up into extension like this, bring her as far as I can go, and line that up with the bone, and I get 70 degrees. So that would be passive range of motion, right wrist extension, 0 to 70 degrees with firm. Emily.
Movable arm, is it on the bone or is it just above parallel?
It's parallel to it if you can't get it on
Okay.
the bone. Okay? Make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's how we do those measures.